Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are joined with Sean from Inventory Base, who will be talking about the Renters' Right Bill decoded strategies for a changing market. If you have any questions, you can pop them in the questions box and we'll try and get through them at the end of the webinar. Alternatively, you can email events@propertymart.co.uk. I'll now pass you over to start the webinar. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Kelsey. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I appreciate your time. It's very busy. So I'm going to get straight to it. So one of the first things I'm going to let you know is it's 30 minutes. I'll try and keep to that as much as possible. But there's a lot to get through. So it's very text heavy. But you will get copies of the slides. And also I've got some other bits and pieces to talk about afterwards that you'll also get a copy of. Like Kelsey said, if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat. If we can't answer them now, then I'll definitely come back to you, or if you want to come back to me afterwards, then feel free to contact me. So let's look at what's going on, because there's a hell of a lot going on in the industry at the moment, and it's all about renters' rights bills. So I thought let's kind of break it down a little bit. And as we know, letters industry is under great pressure. We've got uncertainty, we've got shifting regulations, and also there's a great big fear of what's coming next. We went through it at tenant fee ban, and we're now going through it again. But for me, navigating change isn't solely about getting through it, i.e. getting from A to B. It's about finding the opportunities, which there are, that will help you grow. And also, when everything feels uncertain, how we can make it better for you so that you can actually come out the other end and actually feel that you're in control of your company, your business, the situation, and how you want to manage your business going forward. So the agenda for this webinar is going to do a background to Renters' Rights Bill, a breakdown of it, the potential effects of reduction in landlords on rental supply and affordability, some insights into tenant inquiries and the impact of the rising rents, and some practical ways to adopt a growth mindset and grow in a changing market. So get you to think in the right kind of way, i.e. how can I do something about this, as opposed to what can't I do? So to give you a bit of background, and I'm sure most of you are already aware, I mean, it's flooding social media. There's so much information. Property market have been really on top of their game, making sure everybody's aware. But just in case you're not, the Renters' Right Bill is progressing in the UK Parliament, and it went through the House of Commons on January 14th and again on the House of Lords on the 4th. Committee stage takes about 3 weeks, and obviously it's complex, and then it goes to report stage and then a third reading, and if amended, it will turn to the Commons for approval before royal assent, and they're expecting around Easter time. So we're getting through this really, really quickly, and it will mean then we'll be able to implement the tenancy system by summer. There is some people thinking it'll be by July, before the recess, or during the recess, and then the government coming back in September ready to see what's gone on and how they're going to manage all the conversations. So that's kind of a loose timeline, but certainly the committee stage and the reading, etc., that's all formulated and parked in the parliamentary timeline, so it's something you can track. The key provisions are abolishing Section 21 no-fault evictions, introducing periodic tenancies for tenant stability, strengthening grounds for landlords to regain possession, and I'm sure there's a couple of raised eyes at that point, but we'll get there, prohibiting rental bidding practices, allowing tenants to request pets. You've got the decent home standards going to be coming in, the banning of what they consider as discrimination against tenants on benefits or with children, and all of these reforms are meant to enhance the rights of the 11 million property renters in England. And it's also mooted as a way of allowing landlords to manage properties effectively. But I think if you watched, as I did, the Lords debate about it on the 4th, it didn't feel relatively balanced. In fact, it felt very unbalanced towards landlords. So let's unpack it. Abolition of no-fault eviction. So this is when landlords will no longer be able to evict tenants without a valid reason, and it's shifting all tenants over to periodic agreements. It also introduces decent home standards. So that's where private rental properties must meet the new minimum standards for safety, repair, and living conditions. And all this is going to be aligning what the social housing sector is already doing. And in a way, if we were doing fitness of human habitation risk assessments and managing on that side, then there's a lot of crossover. So in a way, that's not such a bad thing. Obviously, the creation of a landlords register, so all landlords are required to register with a national database, increasing transparency, accountability, and enabling better enforcement of rental regulations. There's some discord about that because at the moment it seems to be sitting more with the councils and the transparency side, not so much in as much as they're not looking to really give over that information. So I'm lacking clarity myself on where that transparency is going to actually be sat. Then we've got the regulation of rent increases, so new rules which will control how often and by how much rents can be increased. And this will give stricter notice periods and also mechanisms for tenants to challenge what they consider as unfair rent hikes. And one of the bigger bone of contention, and something that's been talked about for a long time, is requests to have pets in the tenant's home. This change will make it that landlords have to give a reasonable ground for refusal. Otherwise, it's almost like accepted that you will accept pets. And we've also got the abolition of the assured short hold tenancies. So the current system where most private tenancies are ASTs with fixed terms, usually these are 6 or 12 months, they're going to be replaced and they're going to be shifting over to a 2-month and they're going to be open-ended from the start with no fixed contracts. So with that, obviously, will give us an indefinite timeline of when the tenants can actually want to leave and when the tenants can expect them to leave. And because of the no fixed contracts, they will then have to go through, or landlord will have to go through the legal round, Section 8, in order to be able to get that property back. And one of the key points of the change is that landlords cannot require tenants to commit to a minimum fixed term. So whereas previously and currently we've got fixed terms of 6 months, often as a minimum, you won't be able to do that. And as I said before, tenants can give 2 notice at any time to end the tenancy, and landlords must rely on those grounds under Section 8 with notice periods in order to be able to access the property through eviction. The disadvantages for landlords are going to be reduced income. So if tenants are leaving in 2 months' notice, they're going to increase the risk of unexpected void periods. And another element of this is going to be insurance. A lot of insurance policies and also mortgage companies require an understanding of how long that property is going to be tenanted, so they can secure either a rate, a mortgage product, or an insurance policy. So with that kind of movement within the industry, that is going to cause potential problems. And then you've got limited control of the tenancy length. So of course, if you haven't got the fixed term agreements, then there's no way of really predicting what your affordability is going to be like in regards to the mortgage side, but also what your revenue is going to be like from a landlord point of view, and by natural extension, the agent as well. And then there's going to be greater dependence on Section 8. So recovering possession will rely solely on Section 8 grounds, which may involve more legal processes and potential disputes. And the problem we've got with that is they still haven't shored up what they're going to be doing with the courts. We already know there's backlogs. We already know that there's issues in getting these kind of prosecutions and cases seen through the courts. This is only going to set to make it even worse. And at the moment, and as it was said at the Lords debate on the 4th, the mechanisms don't seem to be there, and there doesn't seem to be much discussion around them. They know that they've got to do it, but I'm not seeing any real movement towards getting that element sorted. And obviously disadvantages for change for yourselves as agents. So obviously it's going to increase administration. It's just going to. Managing rolling tenancies require continuous oversight compared to, as I put it, the set and forget fixed term contracts. So you could at least forget about them for 6 months. I'm not saying that you forget about your tenants, so you're nurturing them. I know you do that, but in as much as that it's there, it's done, you're looking at your pipeline, you're going for obviously to get more properties on. But at this time, you're going to be doing this constantly. So it's going to be like a revolving door. And obviously it's going to be more reliance on Section 8, so you can have legal complexity. So you're going to need to be very well versed, or at least have the right subject matter experts working with you. And that's great if you're a corporate, not so much when you're an agent that works maybe solely and independently and doesn't have that backing of a bigger network. So of course you're going to need to be well versed in the legal grounds for possession and how you're going to actually support your landlords, because landlords in the main have loads of questions, and of course they're going to look to you and ask you about them. There's going to be increased demand for turnover services in regards to suppliers. So this is a disadvantage in some respects. Some people look at it as a really good advantage, because obviously that means you've got high demand for services. But with that, there's operational bottlenecks. There's potential for changing peak turnover periods. And we don't even know what that's going to look like because of the impact on the student market. But we certainly are going to see an upturn. And obviously that's not just, say, for an inventory provider, it's also going to be your cleaning, your maintenance, your safety inspections, gas and electrical checks. When we had EICR come in, there was a huge rush trying to get those done, and there's only a small body of providers that can actually do that. So of course then bottlenecks occurred, and then there was a running risk of then going over that legislation timeline and then potentially being subject to fines and notices because you haven't delivered. And of course then that's, as it stands at the moment, would impact on the Section 21. And there's further disadvantages for suppliers, because obviously there's going to be budgetary constraints, because landlords are going to be going, okay, if I've got to do these things every 2 months, that's going to cost me a lot of money. And obviously from an agent point of view, you're going to say, well, how do I manage that? So of course, with increasing costs, they're going to look to see where they can make savings, where they can make efficiencies, and then they make up back on discretionary services that will impact suppliers. And if you look at the industry as a whole at the moment, you've got around about 550,000 estate agents in the UK. And of course, if every single one of them has at least one type of supplier, that's a big sector that could be impacted, that will naturally impact you again, because you haven't then got the people to help you provide the services. So there's going to be a shift to cost-effective solutions, certainly from the supplier's point of view. And obviously there's going to be pressure, because obviously as an agent, you're going to be pressurised because landlord's pressurising you, and it always comes down the line. So obviously there's going to be a demand for more cost-efficient services that are scalable. And obviously that means then you've got to then get your strategy in place. And I'm not talking in the spring, I'm talking now. And as I said here, it's not just a bill, it's a key piece of legislation, and it will reshape the private rental sector. And it's going to redefine all our roles in it, because now we're going to have to find different ways of working, and we've got to understand exactly how that's going to impact us, how that's going to impact our clients, our portfolios, our pipelines, and then how we then manage the people within that and to get the best out of them for the right amount of cost, but also with the quality there. So for me, quality always comes first, not cost, but I know it's going to be a factor. So some market impacts explained. So some key stats. So if you look at the private rental sector as it stands at the moment, you've got about 4.6 million. That's 19% of households. So if we just did an extrapolation on a reduction of 20%, we're looking at, if 20% of landlords exit the PRS, you're looking at about 920,000 rental properties removed from the market. Now, if you go for a 30% reduction, obviously that then gets higher. I mean, they are big numbers. And at the moment, if you look what's going on, and I've tweeted about it and LinkedIn today about the fact that on Landlord today, they're saying that, there is a disquiet. There's more landlords looking at what they can do. And so therefore, the 20% reduction, I think that's potential, 10% possible, more possible, but the fact is it will have an impact if we're not looking at the numbers and keeping an eye on things. And also, you've got to remember there's people involved here. This isn't just about stats, etc. If you think about it, each rental property supports about 2.3 people, and that's based on a household's size data. So you're looking at displacement of 2.1 to 3.1 million people, and that creates pressure on supply, because at the end of the day, the one given fact throughout, everything that we do is we need somewhere to live. So if you haven't got somewhere to live, there's an ongoing impact. It will create a ripple effect no matter what we do. And as I mentioned in the agenda, you've got the affordability pressure. So we know rents have been rising. They have kind of stabilised in some areas, but certainly we've looked at a 9% increase and certainly 11.6% increase in London. Great for a landlord, for an agent. For a tenant, obviously they're looking to make it affordable. So will this reduced supply push rental increases up? But the trouble is then, will tenants actually be able to afford it? So you get to a point where you want X amount, but the tenant can't pay it. So if they can't pay it, then you've got a disconnect, and then there becomes a problem in regards to, well, how do you avoid going into a void period with the property, because no one is able to rent it from a financial point of view. And there's also an impact on social housing. So social housing wait lists currently exceed 1.33 million. So 64% of households in 23-24 entered that from the outside sector. So displaced private renters could actually add another 25% more onto these overstretched services. And we know that social housing market is literally creaking at the seams. They've got a lot of problems. And then if we add another 25% to them, who knows what that's going to look like and what's going to happen. There's also shifting tenant demands. So obviously we've had inquiries have gone up. We know that, and I say obviously because it's all in the social media. Everybody's been saying about it. You've seen pictures of queues of tenants waiting to sign up at the agent for one property. You've had tenants who have been going for the property. Like I think it's like one in. For every property, there's like 10 applicants. So there's a lot there. And of course, if the rental pool shrinks, then obviously become property. Or the competition for property becomes worse. Obviously, it impacts the affordability issues, and then we get back to the social housing side again in regards to exceeding those waiting lists. So that's kind of like the doom and gloom. That's kind of like, okay, you're probably saying, well, yeah, I know that, Sean. What do we do about it? So for me, and the way I talk to people in the industry is, the change, the challenge does equal opportunity. There's always a solution. Back in my old days in my previous role, I was always told, never come to me with a problem, come to me with a problem with a solution. So there's always an opportunity. It's how you look at it, how you manage your mindset, and also when you start, i.e. you should be starting now, not waiting for a few months down the line. So strategy of success, everybody's involved in this. So I could just focus on yourselves as agents, but you've got to look at everybody, because if then you're looking at landlords and tenants and agents and suppliers, then you're making sure that everybody in your kind of like your stakeholder ecosphere all understand what's going on, all supported, and you're working with them as opposed to against them, because maybe they don't understand, they don't know, they don't agree. So you've got to get them on board. So for landlords, the growth of institutional landlords and build to rent schemes does offer stable, professionally managed rental options. And certainly from a portfolio point of view, if that is stable, then your pipeline is stable. So for me, it's about looking at regulatory demands as opportunities to access things like grants and attract quality tenants and enhance their reputation, because at the end of the day, with a build to rent scheme, certainly everything is about that experience. So of course, then the better the experience, the better the commentary, the better the reviews, and the more likely you are to be able to manage that portfolio successfully and get the right people in there paying the price that hopefully is both what you want as well as reasonable. For tenants, you've got service security and quality. So for their part, they're looking at enhanced protection from what they consider is arbitrary evictions. Now, that I would put in inverted commas, because I know from what I speak about in the sector, for the people I talk to, both tenants and landlords, that that kind of narrative isn't exactly right, and it's ramped up more than actually it is. And I think in one of a recent recent webinar panel thing we did, most tenants that actually understand, some of the reasons why, that they've had their tenancy brought to an end. And most of the Section 21 evictions are for a reason, not because the landlords decided they just want them out and want to do something else with the property. So, from a tenant's point of view, they're looking at it, I'm going to be get better living conditions, and I'll be more secure in my property. But the mindset here is to engage proactively with the landlords, build better rental experiences and secure more stable housing options, because you're talking to them, you're understanding, they are understanding you, and then you can manage that relationship much better. For letting agents, for yourself, you've got rising demand for agents who guide landlords through the complex regulations and help ensure compliance. They are going to be looking at you as subject matter experts, someone who's going to hold their hand all the way through the process and make sure that or they know what they need to know, because you do, and you're helping them make sure that they are compliant, which means they're not going to be liable for fines or any other oversight. So for that side of things, your prop tech solutions and your continuous professional development is how you position yourself as a compliance expert. So you get the training, the knowledge, the know-how, but then use PropTech, use technology to be able to streamline those processes so that your CRMs are talking to all your different systems. They're all connected to make sure that when you're sharing data, when you're asking for reports, when you're sharing information with the tenant, when you're requesting risk assessments and you're receiving them, everything works seamlessly, because what you want it to do is be working in the background while you're focusing on the relationship, the pipeline, and building the business. And then from suppliers, compliance demands, there is going to be a sustained need for detailed inspections and reports under decent home standards, because you're going to have to, from an agent point of view, provide the evidence as to what the property is like, how you're managing it, whether it's safe, secure, if it's not, what you're doing about it, the maintenance, and so on and so forth. So certainly from a supplier's point of view, there's going to be a requirement there. And obviously, again, PropTech integration is key, so that suppliers can talk to you to feed the information into your pipeline quickly, seamlessly, without any barriers, and making sure you get it as soon as they click the button, so that you know then exactly where you stand, and if there's issues you can jump on them straight away. And that improves your efficiency and also expands your market reach from an agent point of view and also the supplier point of view. So it's a reciprocal relationship. And then from the mindset side of things, it's about innovating service options, looking what else you can do, looking to supply. So how else can you help me? What else can be done to make this relationship better, more strategic, scale, and give and deliver the kind of service that you want and want to then deliver to your clients? So some ideas around how you do that. So reports agents, suppliers can leverage. One of the first ones is, and it's something I've banged on for a long, long time, and now I think it's going to be very much prevalent in the change to the industry, is the fitness for human habitation report. So the purpose of this, it makes sure you're meeting the legal requirements of standards of health and safety and habitability. And then the contents of those reports, as you can see, are damp, mold checks, ventilation assessment, structural integrity checks, sanitation, etc. And these should be done certainly annually or during major tenancy changes, but certainly before you take that tenancy on the pipe into your pipeline. And the value here is it demonstrates legal compliance right from the outset, and it reduces your liability and your risk as you go forward. Another one is going to be the Housing Health and Safety Rating System, or HHSRS. It identifies potential hazards that could impact tenant health and safety, and it's going to give a risk score. And this is what the environmental health officers and your councils rely on in regards to understanding whether that property is safe and fit, or whether it's a category 1 hazard where it's a danger to life, and then they're going to come down on you like a ton of bricks with improvement orders and potentially fines as well. So all these need to be done pre-tenancy, and certainly every 12 months, in order to make sure you're keeping on top of things, because just because it's fine now doesn't mean it's going to be fine 5 minutes or 2 tenancies down the line or 12 months down the line, etc. Properties move and change with the occupants and how they occupy it, what they do. So you've got to think about it from a point of view of that, it might be good now, but it might not be later on, but I need to keep an eye on it. So, bring this into your pipeline. And then from a value point of view, it keeps you compliant with the decent home standards, because Decent Home Standards is up for review. We're hoping that will come out, and certainly probably around about the right same time as Renters' Rights Bill goes to Royal Assent or thereafter, and HHS is a key component of that. And then you've got your interim property inspection report. So obviously this gives you your mid-tenancy review, your conditions to identify early issues, and it means then you're on top, you're talking to your tenants, and if there is any problems, you're dealing with them, and also if there's any unauthorised tenant activity, you're there, you know about it. Some agents will do it every 3 to 6 months, or every 3 or 6 months, some every 12 months. For me, you've got to be on it straight away, so every 3 months makes perfect sense. And that prevents disputes, it provides evidence, and ensures timely maintenance. And then you've got your Decent Home Standard Compliance Report. So this is about confirming that the property meets the minimum standard under the Renters' Rights Bill. So you're talking about energy efficiency, structural soundness, again, modern kitchen and bathroom checks. And again, this should be done annually or under major improvements. And this is going to be mandatory for landlords under new legislation that's coming in. So again, it's something that you need to figure into your work activity, your workflow, to make sure that you don't miss it. And then you've got your periodic tenancy review portal. So these are the reviews, the terms of compliance of ongoing periodic tenancies. And these are going to be used for things like rent increase justifications. When you're getting your comparables, why you want to raise the rent and how do you justify it? Because if that goes to the first tier tribunal or court because a tenant says, no, I don't agree, I'm not paying that, you've then got to say to the court, well, look, this is the reasons why I've got justification for this. And that gives you that ability then to adjust and manage that tenancy much better. And then you've got your eviction grounds and possession reports. So these provide evidence to support eviction under new Section 8 rules. So again, these are going to have to be clearly documented. This isn't going to be a WhatsApp message, an odd photograph. It's got to be a proper report that can go in front of a court and be relied on. So things like I've got no idea of my mouse today. Documentation of arrears, antisocial behaviour, breach of tenancy, and also your records of landlord and tenant communication as well. So all of these got to be factored in, and these are needed for legal proceedings. And this again reduces the risk of disputes in court, and not just about getting to court, but when you get to court, that you can actually hopefully win that particular case. And I've mentioned it just previously, the rent increase justification report, so that you can provide data-driven support for lawful rent increases. So your comparisons, what improvements you've made on the property since the last review, cost of living adjustments, and just to make sure that that's very, very clear as to this is why we need to up the amount of rent. And that again helps avoid disputes and rent increases. And then you've got your normal everyday ones, your check-ins, your check-outs, your inventory reports, all the ones that actually then take into account the condition of the property. And again, if you're going to be having tenants potentially move out every 2 months, it doesn't matter the fact they've only been there 10 months. A lot of people say that nothing's happened after 2 years, but it depends on how they use the property, depends on what they're doing. So there is quite a possibility that for those 2 months, they could wreck the place, they could look after it, it could be better when it comes back to you. But unless you've got those reports, you don't know. And again, you've got the whole deposit issue, and that is going to be an admin headache in itself. So you want to make sure you've got everything lined up and that you've got all the reports you need to be able to dispute any claims. So what's at stake here? You've got rising compliance costs for landlords, but to balance it with clear regulations and long-term stability. You've got for tenants, you've got better protections as far as they're concerned, and the likes of shelter and generation rent, but that could potentially reduce housing options and create higher rents. For agents, yourself, you've got a surge in complexity, but you've got an opportunity to add value to what you're doing, what you're providing, your services, and what you charge for those services. And for suppliers, you've got pressure to scale, but room to innovate and drive standards. So we've all got to be talking to each other to say, what do we need? How are we going to get it? And what tech are we going to leverage to get to that point? So for me, the stakes couldn't be higher. Adaptation isn't optional. It is going to be essential if we're to stay competitive and resilient throughout this. Tenant fee ban, at the time, everybody thought the market would contract, it would be a problem, we would have loads of issues, and it didn't turn out that way. This is slightly different. This is hitting so many different aspects of the market that it's quite possible that we will see a reduction in the amount of portfolios and properties on the market, but then we might also then see those properties that do go for sale going into your larger portfolio landlords, or going into the build to rent sector where tenants are moving to. So there is opportunities to manage that, but it is the case of we need to manage it. We can't just leave it, and we can't just hope that the government's going to change its mind. So if you watched what the Lords were saying, out of all of the conversation, the main bits that I got out of there was they think it's right, they're bringing it in, and even though you had some Lords and MPs saying, do you know what, no, this is too quick, too soon, this is not going to work, that got drowned out by everybody else going, yeah, we're really happy, patting themselves on the back. So this is coming, there's no way around it, but it's what we do about it. So I think now is a case of speaking to your suppliers, speaking to your landlords, and deciding on how and what you're going to do, get your strategy right, and then start leveraging the right technology to be able to manage that. Now, I've managed to keep that in 30 minutes, and apologies if I stumbled over a couple of words, but there's so much to speak about. And because of that, I've actually created some bonus content as well, which Kelsey will be able to talk about for you in order just to get you thinking a bit further on, because that's just part of it. There's other bits that are in the Renters' Rights Bill that may also then create problems, but also opportunity. So that is something that you can avail yourself of. You can either click on the QR code here and connect with us, and I can send those over to you, but Kelsey can also do that for you as well, including copies of the slides. So that is me. Thank you for listening, and especially because I know I bombarded you with a lot of information, but I hope you found that interesting.
Thank you, Sean. We've had a few questions come in that are very detailed. So what I'm going to do is forward these over to Sean at the end, and she'll be able to get back to you individually. And
Yeah.
I'll also be forwarding the slides, like Sean said, also with the bonus content. But yeah, if anyone does have any questions, you can also email events@propertymark.co.uk, where we can also forward these over. Thank you so much for attending today, and Sean for doing the webinar. And I hope everyone has a lovely rest of the week.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.